I just want to start by saying thank you to everybody who took the time to be here today to learn more about urban coyote ecology and management. It warms my heart to see this many people here learning about this and interested in this and engaged in this topic. So that's wonderful. Thank you for making the time to be here. My name is Mary Ann Bunnell. I'm the Visitor Services Supervisor for Jefferson County Open Space, best job on the planet. And I am here today to report back initial findings from our Coyote Watch Citizen Science program. I just want to shout out, are any of our citizen scientists here in the audience today? Raise your hand if you were trained as a citizen. Yay! Woohoo! Our awesome folks. Give them a hand. Excellent. So when we first started talking about this project, I really wanted to do a citizen science project right away, just because those of you that know me know that education is my foundation, it's my core, it's what I love to do, and I do believe that you can solve most problems through effective education and outreach. So one of the things we wanted to do as we looked at how we were going to move towards solutions for coyote conflict in the Denver metro area was let's engage people who are already super interested in lifelong learning and super interested in wildlife and super interested in this issue, and let's put them to work. So I just want to acknowledge, first of all, that our Coyote Watch partners, as far as funding goes, Adams County Open Space, and it was one of the most interesting Adams County Open Space Advisory Board meetings ever. We were at the bottom of the list for funding this coyote research project, $58,000 ask. We were at the bottom of the list. Got up, started talking about the project, people got really excited, and all of a sudden we were funded, like first for the evening. So hooray for changing things around. So Adams County Open Space gave us $58,000 towards not only the human dimensions part, which Tara and Andrew are going to talk about, but also toward creating a citizen science program. Also, Stuart was integral in this. So the National Wildlife Research Center put funding towards this and helped me work in my free time when I was not doing my day job to work towards making the citizen science program successful. I also want to acknowledge the City of Aurora IT department, and you'll see in a moment how they were integral in making this work. Where's Carla, Jefferson County Open Space? Yay, Carla delivered probably more citizen science trainees than anyone else on the planet. Thank you. Also, the Shelley Alexander from University of Calgary, I had citizen science envy. I went shopping and looked at all the different citizen science programs out there, and she had the coolest website with kind of the neatest sort of interactive map. And she was very gracious with me, did a lot of work to answer questions. And then also Morgan Adams, who isn't here today, but I'm going to be reporting back on some of her initial research. She looked at the citizen science program and who participated. So just quickly, if you aren't familiar, citizen science is one of those things where you have a researcher, Stuart, Tara, identify a problem, and then you engage citizens who may or may not have PhDs, but they're super excited about whatever topic it is you're talking about. You engage them to help collect data. It creates a distributed data collecting system, which is terrific. And citizen science is becoming more and more accepted these days. There's a lot of great citizen science projects out there. I know Jefferson County Open Space is doing Project Budburst and Frog Watch. Where's Lisa? She's over there, so she leads those up. So really a great program to collect more data. And I want to admit right now that we have a lot of observations from this project. We have not yet begun to really look at those observations and analyze that data. I have the feeling there are 2 or 3 thesis papers buried in there. What I kind of want to talk about today and report back on is sort of Morgan's research of the motivations of people and what we think some of the impacts of the folks that were educated through the program were. So researcher identifies a problem, designs the study, and volunteers help collect the data. So what's the problem? You guys tell me. What's the problem in this case? We live in coyote country, we have coyote conflict. So when you talk to residents or people who want to do this, what's the problem? They will tell you there's coyote conflict, and there are people in my neighborhood that are arguing about coyotes and are really upset about things that are happening or things that are not being done or things that are being done. So there's the human coyote conflict. Research is needed to define and hone the best tools for reducing conflict. Again, in my mind, I believe education is a very powerful tool for solving a lot of problems, including human coyote conflict. But we need to look at that. Does that really work, or is that just my delusion that has gotten me through my entire career? So the other thing is citizen science offers enhanced data collection and an opportunity to work with an engaged audience. I told Stuart, we were talking about this the other week, and I said my goal with this project was to change the conversation. When people are talking about coyotes, I'd hear stuff that was wrong, I'd hear stuff repeated that they heard on the media, and I thought, I want to change that. I want, when people talk about coyotes, to talk about it in an educated and informed and research-based way, not, you know, whatever they hear from whoever. So it was the idea of changing the conversation and doing that through citizen science, or as I like to call it, global domination through effective and killer outreach. So Coyote Watch goals. The goals in my mind, and these were when I sat down and initially tried to sort of line out this program, and where's Ashley Delout? I know I saw her walk in. So Ashley was a huge help. She and I sat down together, we kind of talked about what do we want to do with this, and we came up with some goals, and we want to improve and expand the reach of coyote activity reporting in the Denver metro area. So Pete model organization, Broomfield's tracking, keeping track of reports, mapping them. I know Jefferson County does the same thing. A lot of municipalities don't have the infrastructure to do that. So the thought was if we get volunteers and they have a centralized map, then we can have that stuff reported on. I also wanted to improve the general understanding of coyote ecology and behavior out there in the public. And then measure individual coyote response to human input, such as the presence of pets, hazing, or intentional feeding. And then lastly, measure the effectiveness of different coyote hazing techniques and tools. So using the volunteers to do that. So this is from Morgan's paper. She kind of saw it this way. Citizen science expands data collection and provides an opportunity to educate an already engaged audience. So citizen science is considered cost-effective, can lead to an increase in understanding of causes of conflict. So again, changing that conversation. When people are saying, oh, it's just coyotes and they're bad. Well, maybe a trained citizen scientist, if they're at that Bronco party, they might say, you know, no, actually, here's the deal. When it comes to coyote conflict, was your dog off leash or something like that? So change that conversation. Effective way to educate the public. And again, I realize citizen scientists are self-selected. These are people that are highly engaged, lifelong learners. I know they're not your average Joe, but they do mingle around in the world with average people. And so they share this information with their friends. All right? I know you citizen scientists are awesome. So, and lessen the gap between the experts and the public. So again, as Stuart said when he introduced this symposium, a lot of times this research stays in papers and is presented at conferences that scientists sign up for and attend, and a lot of this stuff never gets out to the folks like me that are boots on the ground talking to people with concerns about coyote management at Crown Hill Park, because I show up in this uniform. You can't get away with being low-key and hiding in the bushes like this. So, so the idea here is, again, why engage citizens in coyote monitoring and data collection? Well, one of the things that really struck me when I was doing the literature review for this project was a paper called A Review of Successful Coyote Management Programs in Southern California. And they stated very plainly in that paper that activity reporting is one of the keys to reducing conflict. Because as Pete said, you kind of want to know where your hot spots are, and you can get information out there. You can do targeted outreach. So this was a way to get that information out there. Activity reporting, again, allows you to identify hotspots and know where you need to put your efforts. And finally, as we all know, the media is not necessarily the most accurate tool for portraying predator behavior. Yes? Thank you. That was tepid. So anyway, we'll change that. So how did I do this? I went into a literature review looking at other citizen science programs. I wanted to not reinvent the wheel, but kind of use best practices that were already out there. I looked at existing citizen science observation forums. I went to the Millville Predator Research Center to actually observe coyotes directly and work with that team so I could figure out how to code their behavior. And Ashley helped me out a lot with my draft observation form, and so did Stuart. And then we developed a stimulus response scale. So in other words, if you see a coyote respond to something, how do you score what that looks like? And we'll get into more detail on that in a minute. But the idea is we wanted people to be able to measure a coyote's response to something that happens. So say a motorcycle drives by, or a person hazes it, or there's a dog. How is that coyote responding? So then we developed a training course. More on that in just a second. Recruited volunteers, thank you, because there were people like Carla, there were people like Kristen Prince, there were Jefferson County Open Space, really helped me to recruit people to be involved in this program. Started the training in January of 2012. And should have done this first, but you know, you learn things the hard way sometimes. I worked with the Aurora IT department to develop an online entry system, which was great. Because initially people were turning in forms and it was ugly and it wasn't really that great. So what did that look like? Training components. When we met with folks, they attended a 3.5 hour training. And they got a quiz on urban coyote ecology, because we want to make sure, we don't want to assume that there's information that's known. And that quiz even started with, hey, do you know how to identify a coyote? Okay, so we would ask folks about how do you identify a coyote. We'd go over those skill sets, because again, we didn't want, somebody, a researcher, to be reading this going, wow, they're talking about a fox, good training. So, so then also, we wanted to really hit on, what do you look for when you see a coyote? So the blessing I have is my mother is an ornithologist. A lot of you know my mom, Ann Bonnell, right? So I'm a kid. It wasn't enough to say, hey, there's a bird, right? You have to say what kind of bird, what it was doing, whether it's in adult plumage or juvenile plumage, all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to coyotes, what's interesting is a lot of time when people see coyotes, they're sort of like, oh yeah, there's a coyote. Well, what we wanted to train these volunteers to do is go beyond that. Yes, you saw a coyote. What is it doing? What is its body language telling you? So we talked about centers of expression for coyotes, and you guys know what those are. What's the tail doing? What are the ears doing? What is the mouth doing? What is there a raised hair involved? Those are all things to look for instead of just, yeah, I just saw a coyote. What is it doing? So we trained on that. And then we also introduced this crazy idea that it took me going to the Millville Predator Center to observe this directly to get it into my head, that individual coyotes can respond to the exact same stimulus differently. And that may be kind of at the heart of conflict, really. If you've got a coyote that's bold, living in an urban area, and you got a shy coyote, which one's probably going to be making the phone ring more? This is a quiz, you guys. Bold coyote or shy coyote? Who probably makes the phone ring more? Just a guess. This is a theory, right? So the idea is that what we wanted to do is train these volunteers to understand that individual coyotes have individual behavior types. And again, it took me going to the Predator Research Center. We took that little effigy, set it down in an enclosure with coyotes, and we got to see 18 different coyotes respond to the presence of that stupid little, Cobella's fake coyote. And I know some of you have heard this story, but what was the response? 18 different coyotes, what was the response? 18 different responses, everything from abject terror, moving to the exact back of the enclosure, like, get that thing out of here, to coming up, knocking it over, and almost peeing on it. So you can understand that moment, I sort of was this person who was like, oh my goodness, this is what it's all about, is if we can train volunteers to understand that different coyotes react differently, maybe they can give us a heads up that we've got a bold coyote in a certain area that's doing things that maybe we should, have a little orange flag or yellow flag or maybe even a red flag. So we got them to talk about, looking at how coyotes respond can be this really cool window into that coyote's behavior type. So this is, generally what you see in a rural area, coyotes fanny and feet as it runs away from you, right? So that's one sort of response. Here's this coyote saw this golfer and just turned sideways, like, check this out. Okay, so that's hardly a response. And then after the golfer hazed it, this is what it did. It went, oh, sure, yeah, go on. All right, so that's a different response, right, than the first one. And then also this is one from Crown Hill where everybody's just kind of sharing the trail, glitter, rainbows, unicorns. There's the coyote over there on the side and everybody's just kind of ignoring it. So that's like a nothing, okay? And then there's this one where there's a jogger and the coyote's following it. So training these volunteers to understand those are different responses to different stimuli. So Stuart came up with this really cool thing he found in a walrus study. And we use that as our way of sort of gauging this. And I understand this is an imperfect system, but it allowed us to have a volunteer go, yeah, I yelled at the coyote and it did a -2. That's meaningful. I realize it's subjective, but it is meaningful. Okay, so we trained him on that. We talked to him about hazing and hazing techniques. Some people had never heard of that before. Some people only know the media version of hazing, which you go to jail for if you do it to a human being and it's bad. So that's a word that's troubling. We'll talk about that later. And then they got to review and use the observation form and practice with the form using some photos for reference. So here's the deal. We trained over 300 volunteers so far. They all attended the 3.5-hour training session. I did 15 of them. We have over 500 observations. Anyone can look those up. So if you want to look them up, you can look them up today. I do it when I'm feeling sad and lonely at night. I get on and I go on to Coyote Watch Map. And you can Google them, and all you have to do is enter a set of dates, and it will download all the observations. And you click on one of those individual dots, and it'll give you this little box. If you click on details, you can look up the details of what that particular observation is. This one happens to be a coyote that just caught a prairie dog at the spillway at Aurora. Is that news shattering? But if you that are urban prairie dog managers are like, yes. Okay, so that was a coyote doing normal coyote things, which is really what I wanted to get out of this, is that you train all these people to go out and help us be distributed data collectors, and they're going to report back, you know what, pretty much in urban environments, coyotes are doing like normal coyote things. Is that good news? Absolutely, right? So, just to get into Morgan's findings really quickly, she wanted to find out, what motivates people to join Coyote Watch, and does it make a difference? Is it making a difference? Does it have an impact on conflict? So, first she asked people, why did they participate? So here's some basic reasons. They wanted to volunteer. They wanted to learn to live with coyotes. They wanted to teach others. That's that Bronco game or Bunko game sharing thing. Love that. Okay. They also wanted to participate because they enjoy watching wildlife. Some of them were concerned for safety of pets or children, wanted to participate in research. And some people joined us because they were really concerned that as managers we were going to harm coyotes, that there was something malicious about what we were up to. I get that. That's cool. So they participated for that reason. So according to Morgan's research, Coyote Watch is having an impact. Participation decreases the knowledge gap between the PhDs and the public, which is great. That information is getting shared, changing the conversation. And interestingly enough, participation increases community capacity to handle human-coyote conflict. What does that look like? People are better ready to handle conflict because they went to Coyote Watch? Sure. So they have new knowledge. They understand behavior a little bit better. Because they understand behavior better, they may not precipitate something like Pete talked about, where people are walking their dogs off leash. That can precipitate negative behavior. They understand their role as humans in the conflict. They have changes in tolerance for management strategies. So one of the things we asked is, hey, before this training, how did you feel about certain management strategies? And now that you've been through the training, what do you think now? And they had more tolerance for certain management strategies. Decreased perception of risk. Coyotes aren't here to eat our children and us and global domination. They're just here to do their thing and be in the ecosystem. And they were more likely to haze coyotes, which is, I think, a positive outcome. It also increases empowerment. People were more confident. If I see a coyote, I got this. I've been to this training, I've got it. They are ready to take action. Some of them started creating Facebook pages and sharing information with their neighbors and informing others. So that's huge. To me, that was the big goal for me even engaging in this project. So final thoughts. This is straight out of Morgan's paper. So this is her thesis paper for her master's thesis. A lot of the people that participated in Coyote Watch, they had a new ability to deal with human-coyote conflict. Mission accomplished, right? They had a better understanding of coyote behavior and steps that can be taken to manage conflict incidents. The residents are involved in coyote management and now feel empowered as a result of the program. And they want to change others the same way. So in my mind, even though we haven't even looked at those 500 plus pieces of data that have been generated, all those observations, which again are going to be awesome, just the fact that this has happened means the world to me. And that's the report back on the citizen science program.